A single building in China just opened that is so massive, it makes Grand Central Terminal look like a corner store. It is 5 times larger, with enough space to fit 170 football fields under one roof, and it was built in barely 3 years. But this is not about size for the sake of size. This is Chongqing East Railway Station. And it exists because China figured out how to solve a problem that most countries have not even started thinking about. Chongqing is home to over 30 million people. That's more than Australia's entire population, more than Malaysia, more than Texas and Florida combined. And yet, ask someone outside of Asia if they've heard of it, and you'll probably get a blank stare. The city itself is one of the wildest looking places on the planet, with skyscrapers rising straight out of mountainsides and bridges connecting ridges dozens of stories above the Yangtze River. At night, the whole skyline glows like someone stacked a dozen cities on top of each other and lit every single one at once. But here's what made Chongqing different from almost every other major Chinese city. The same mountains and rivers that make it look stunning also made connecting it to the rest of the country brutally difficult. Train tracks had to wind through valleys like snakes. Tunnels got drilled through solid rock for kilometers at a stretch. A trip that looked short on the map could eat up an entire day because the train spent more time turning and climbing than actually moving forward. Even as China's high-speed rail network expanded across the eastern seaboard over the last 2 decades, Chongqing lagged behind. The terrain made everything slower, harder, and more expensive than anywhere else. Think about what that actually meant for someone living there. A university student heading to Chengdu, just 300 kilometers down the line, faced a 4 or 5 hour journey on routes that twisted through mountain passes. Business travelers could not make day trips to other major cities. Cargo sat waiting at depots for slow rail connections instead of moving efficiently to coastal markets. For 30 million people, geography was not just an inconvenience. It dictated where they could work, where they could study, and what kind of life they could actually build. The city eventually got Chongqing North Station, which became the main hub. For a while that worked, but the city kept growing, and the infrastructure around it started cracking under the weight of all those new arrivals. During Spring Festival and National Day, which trigger some of the largest human migrations on the planet, Chongqing North became completely overwhelmed. Lines stretched out past the doors and into the streets. Platforms jammed beyond safe capacity. The system was maxed out, and tens of thousands more people kept showing up every single year. Expanding the old station was not realistic either. The surrounding blocks were already developed. The mountains made routing new tracks expensive and complicated. There was nowhere to grow without ripping apart what already existed, and doing that would have created chaos for millions of daily commuters. Then 2 massive national plans landed at exactly the right moment, and together they forced a decision that changed the entire trajectory of the city. The first was the Chengdu-Chongqing Twin City Economic Circle. The idea was simple but ambitious. Turn these 2 southwestern cities into a combined economic engine for the entire western half of China. More investment, more business, more jobs, all funneling through this region. For decades, the wealthy coastal cities along the Pearl River Delta and the Yangtze River Delta had dominated China's growth story. This plan aimed to shift that balance westward and give the interior its own center of gravity. The second was the 8 vertical and 8 horizontal National Rail Plan. Picture a giant grid of high-speed rail corridors stretching across the entire country, connecting every major population center, north to south and east to west, like graph paper drawn across a map of China. Chongqing sat right at the intersection of several of the most critical lines on that grid. The right location, the population to justify it, the demand already overflowing. But without a station that could actually handle the volume headed its way, Chongqing could not step into that role. The city had everything it needed except the one piece of infrastructure that would tie it all together. In 2019, the decision came down. Build something entirely new. Build it bigger than anything that existed. Build it fast. And design it in a way that nobody had attempted before. What followed was not just a construction project. It was a completely different approach to what a train station could be. The design team behind Chongqing East did not want another sterile transport terminal where passengers rushed through on their way somewhere else. They wanted to build a place that people would actually want to spend time in. A building that felt alive the moment you walked through the doors. Construction crews broke ground in 2022 and immediately ran into brutal conditions. The terrain was rugged and uneven. Summer temperatures across the Chongqing construction site regularly pushed past 40 degrees Celsius, making outdoor labor dangerous for extended shifts. The station's roof alone covered 120,000 square meters of structural steel and curved glass panels that had to be assembled with millimeter precision. A single misalignment could have set the timeline back by months. China's answer was automation on a scale that redefined what a construction site could look like. Laser-guided bulldozers graded the ground with millimeter accuracy, adjusting in real time as sensors read the terrain beneath them. Robots handled concrete leveling across the foundation, work that would normally require large crews laboring through dangerous heat for hours at a stretch. Glass panels weighing 800 kilograms each were lifted and positioned by robotic arms on the upper structure, eliminating the human error that usually plagues the most delicate phase of a build like this. Artificial intelligence-driven safety robots patrolled the perimeter and interior around the clock, scanning for hazards before they turned into accidents. The numbers backed it up. Work efficiency tripled compared to conventional methods. Labor costs dropped by nearly half. Heat-related injuries fell sharply despite conditions that would have sidelined traditional crews for days at a time. However, the real acceleration came from how the station was designed in the first place. Planners chose a layout where the rail platforms sit on an elevated deck, almost like a bridge, with everything else layered underneath. That meant separate construction teams could work on different levels at the same time without getting in each other's way. While one crew laid track on the upper platform deck, another fitted out metro tunnels below, and a third team built out commercial floors beneath that. The entire building rose in parallel rather than in sequence, and that's the real reason it finished so fast. That elevated deck solved another problem too. It freed up nearly 400,000 square meters of usable space underneath the tracks. Space that a conventional flat layout would have wasted entirely. It also saved over 20 hectares of land compared to a traditional station where everything sprawls outward. In a city already squeezed between mountain ridges and river gorges, that kind of land efficiency is worth a fortune. 38 months after crews broke ground, Chongqing East Railway Station opened its doors to the public. Walk inside the main departure hall and the scale hits you before anything else. The station covers 1.22 million square meters. For context, New York's Grand Central Terminal, one of the most celebrated train stations ever built, covers roughly a fifth of that. You could fit Grand Central inside Chongqing East and still have room left over for 4 more copies. Guangzhou South Railway Station, already one of China's busiest at around 615,000 square meters, is barely half the size. Nagoya Station in Japan, one of Asia's largest transport hubs at roughly 410,000 square meters, fits inside about 3 times over. Nothing else on Earth comes close as a single continuous building. 8 levels are stacked above and below ground. Up on the higher floors, 15 platforms and 29 high-speed rail tracks handle trains arriving from every direction across the country. Drop a few levels down, and you reach metro platforms connecting to the rest of the Chongqing subway network. Keep descending, and you find bus terminals, underground parking garages, and taxi pickup zones. Scattered throughout every floor are shops, restaurants, business offices, and hotels. You could spend an entire day inside the station and never run out of places to go. At peak capacity, the building processes 16,000 passengers in a single hour. On a major travel day during Spring Festival, that adds up to hundreds of thousands of people flowing through one structure. The old Chongqing North Station used to buckle under that kind of demand. Chongqing East absorbs it without breaking a sweat, which was exactly the point from the beginning. But the part that catches people off guard isn't the scale. It's how the station actually feels when you're standing inside it. The roof is a massive undulating wave of steel and glass, stretching across the full 120,000 square meters. It weighs over 16,000 tons. Holding it all up are giant columns shaped like trees, inspired by a species native to the forests around Chongqing. They branch out near the top and spread wide beneath the glass canopy, almost like standing in a grove. Built into the gaps between those branching steel limbs are skylights. During the day, natural light pours down through the glass panels and floods the departure hall below. The whole space feels open, airy, almost like being outdoors. Standing underneath that canopy with sunlight filtering through and the low rumble of high-speed trains in the distance, it doesn't feel like any train station you've been in before. It feels like something that belongs in a completely different category. That wasn't accidental. The architects behind Chongqing East wanted passengers to arrive early, take their time, and actually enjoy being there instead of just rushing through on their way somewhere else. However, the real story goes beyond the building itself. Chongqing East was never designed to just move passengers. From day one, it was meant to be the anchor for an entirely new district. And what the city built around the station changes life for millions of people in ways that go far beyond catching a train. They call it the East Station Hub New City, a 3.5-kilometer urban district designed to radiate outward from the terminal. This was not a station dropped into an existing neighborhood. The station came first, and then an entire urban center was planned around it. Hotels for business travelers who want to step off the train and into a meeting. Office towers for companies that want direct access to the national rail network. Shopping centers and restaurants for passengers with time before their departure. Public squares and green parks for people who live nearby. All of it connected to the platforms by walkways and escalators. All of it within a few minutes on foot. This concept is sometimes called station-city integration. A well-connected transit hub draws people. People draw businesses. Businesses draw more people. Over time, what started as a transportation node becomes a real urban center with its own economic momentum. The station stops just serving the city and starts actively reshaping it. 4 metro lines connect directly into the station complex. One is already running. The others are under construction or in advanced planning. When they are all operational, someone can board a subway car from almost anywhere in Chongqing, ride directly into the station, and transfer to a high-speed train to Beijing or Shanghai without ever stepping outside into the 40-degree summer heat. For tens of millions of annual passengers, that seamless indoor connection changes the entire experience of travel. The district is also tackling one of Chongqing's oldest structural problems. Because the city is carved up by mountains and rivers, development has always been lopsided. Certain neighborhoods got investment. Others, cut off by terrain, got left behind for decades. By anchoring a major new center in the eastern part of the city, planners are deliberately pulling growth in a direction it never flowed naturally. New apartment towers, new commercial zones, new public infrastructure, all tied to a station that gives this part of the city real connections to everywhere else. For the families who settle in this district, that shift is personal. A student who grew up on the eastern outskirts of Chongqing no longer needs to factor in a brutal commute just to reach the city's main transit network. A young couple that could not afford housing near the old city center can now live in a new neighborhood with the same level of connectivity at a fraction of the price. Chongqing East sits at the crossing point of some of China's most critical high-speed rail corridors. It serves as the central hub for the new Chongqing to Xiamen line, linking the southwest interior all the way to port cities on the southeast coast and cutting travel times dramatically for both passengers and freight. Future lines will connect it to Shanghai, deeper into Sichuan toward Chengdu, and northeast toward the industrial heartland. Every major compass direction is covered. From this one station, a passenger can reach almost any corner of China in a few hours by high-speed rail. The impact on daily life is already measurable. That same university student heading to Chengdu, 300 kilometers away, now makes the trip in about 1 hour instead of 4 or 5 hours. A business traveler heading to Beijing can depart in the morning and arrive by early afternoon, making same-day round trips completely practical for the first time. For Western China as a whole, the implications go well beyond any single commute. The interior has historically trailed behind the wealthy coastal provinces because mountains and distance made moving people and goods slower and more expensive. Factories clustered near ports. Investment followed the same coastal gravity. Chongqing East is part of a deliberate national effort to break that pattern, to make the western half of China just as reachable, just as connected, and just as attractive to capital as the coast has always been. The station also sets a new standard for sustainability at this scale. It was built to meet China's highest 3-star green building certification. Solar panels line the rooftop and feed clean electricity back into the grid. The skylights that make the departure hall feel so alive also cut the need for artificial lighting during the day. A centralized climate system manages heating and cooling for the entire district, which is far more efficient than every building running its own separate units. Rainwater collection systems capture runoff across the site and recycle it. Smart occupancy sensors track passenger density in real time and adjust ventilation and temperature accordingly. And because the station connects so tightly to metro and bus networks, fewer people need to drive there at all. Less car traffic around the station means less congestion on the surrounding streets. Lower carbon emissions and cleaner air for everyone in the district. Chongqing East is already the largest high-speed rail station on Earth, but the size might not be the thing that matters most in the long run. What might matter more is the proof that a train station can be something far bigger than a place where journeys start and end. It can be the place where an entire city starts building its next chapter. If you found this one worth your time, subscribe. I cover mega projects and infrastructure stories like this every week. Drop your take in the comments. Could cities outside of China actually pull off something at this scale? Or does a project like this only work under very specific conditions? I want to hear what you think.